It is not commonplace to see an incumbent lose in the United States elections. There are but 10 presidents who didn't win a second term. Could President Joseph R. Biden be the 11th? Hello and welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan, and today we discuss the first U.S. presidential debate. How did the two candidates fare? One of the most dramatic, boring and yet controversial presidential debates of all times unfurled at CNN's Atlanta studios on Thursday. The verbal sparring between incumbent Biden and challenger Trump was dominated by economy, democracy, age, and mental acuity.
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president and what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs.
The greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929.
The stakes were highest for Biden, who at 81 years of age was already battling perceptions that he is already too old for a second term. Despite changing rules with no live audience and the anchors having the right to mute the debaters, Biden was left wanting. Maybe all Joe Biden needed to do was deliver a repeat performance of his State of the Union address. Instead, he stammered and stumbled.
They'd raised $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our health care system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
An important rule of thumb for candidates and moderators alike in debates is the optics. How can they exploit the space? The stage was set to Biden's advantage, a controlled environment, so there is only that much that people could see. And what they saw was just a split screen. Instead, what we saw was the former president full of energy and aggression, but with most of what he said already fact-checked. The baggage of false narrative building continues.
And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody, and I'll tell you something, I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent.
So who came out on top and who fell short in the immediate aftermath? Now, people on social media have already made their choice, and there seems to be a bipartisan consensus on this, that Donald Trump won this debate. Biden's performance during the debate drew scrutiny from Republicans and Democrats alike. Alarm bells for Democrats started ringing, and as sources said that there was aggressive panic in the Dem camp the moment Biden started speaking in a haltingly hoarse voice.
Take a look at what I was left when I became president and what Mr. Trump left me.
Meanwhile, Trump took the opportunity to redirect the conversation at several points to Biden's perceived weaknesses, drumming up fears about immigration and the state of the economy.
We had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum.
He also attempted to dodge questions about whether he would honor the results of November 5th's presidential elections, saying he would only do so if it was fair and free.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country.
Every time Trump spoke, it reflected a characteristic hyperbole the Republican candidate has been known for. For the most part, the debate revealed nothing new about what Biden and Trump think on major issues from economy, immigration, foreign policy, and reproductive rights. Each candidate reiterated positions that they have already touted countless times on the campaign trail. Instead, they largely focused on criticizing each other's past records and lobbing personal attacks.
The crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant?
He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand them better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are.
So what are we left with? First and foremost, Democrats have to be wondering if they'd be better off with someone else as their nominee. Neither candidate is the official nominee yet. The national political conventions haven't happened, but it's next to impossible that Democrats would replace Biden. And in conclusion, I'd say, while the first round goes to Trump, it might not move the needle much, since we saw Biden struggle and Trump fib. But at the end of the day, polarization in the US is near complete. So while the Republicans will consolidate their position, despite Biden's shortcomings, those who want to vote Democrats will do so anyway, because he's not Trump. Well, we've done an analysis of who won the debate or who lost the debate. But let's look at some of the best moments, or in this case, we should say viral moments or awkward moments between Trump and Biden during the debate.
That $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. Making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people.
Now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed under his administration, killed an al-Qaeda person in his administration.
And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime.
I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
Our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever.
We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant?
Give your minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency is, without question, the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. We knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way, and I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards.
Just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf with you if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
21
turn
Let's not act like children.
You
to
are
a
a child.
Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer had their final face-off on TV as they made their last bid to woo the people for the July 4th elections. Immigration, women's safety, taxes were the highlights of the debate.
Have been decided by the years. Politics involved, and I've been criticised. Where these people come from? Keir Starmer says he's going to...
With just days to go before 4th July polling day, it is the final leg of the UK prime ministerial race. Conservatives Rishi Sunak and Labour's Sir Keir Starmer went head-to-head in the final TV debate of the election between the leaders. With the Conservative Party trailing Labour by 20 points, the gloves were off in the 75 minutes debate on BBC. So what was the biggest issue here? Immigration. On the back foot with record increase in illegal migration into the UK, Sunak was on attack mode from the get-go.
It's completely unfair what's happening. When people come here illegally, jump the queue, it not only puts pressure on public services, it not only threatens our security, it's an affront to that sense of fairness, which is fundamental to our national character, and that's why I've made it a priority to stop the boats. We have made progress. The numbers have come down over the past 12 months compared to the 12 months before. We need to make it crystal clear to people that if they come to our country illegally, they won't be able to stay. And that's why, if I'm your Prime Minister on July 5th, the flights will go to Rwanda. We will build that deterrent that multiple other European countries now agree is the right way to deal with this problem, and that's how we solve this problem.
And the Rwanda plan was back on the pitch platter. But Starmer did not let go of the issue, reminding the country of the failure in implementing the Rwanda plan.
Why are record numbers still coming under your watch, Prime Minister? How on earth can you say it's working? You put the scheme in place, the flights could go off. I notice you've called the election, by the way, before any flights could actually get off, and it could be tested, an interesting timing. But if this was such a deterrent, why is it obviously not working?
And then came the Ayatollah jab. The Tory leader tried to corner Starmer on Labour's softer stance on immigration and how they plan to handle illegal migrants, even taking a jab at what they consider Labour's appeasement politics when it comes to minorities from Islamic nations.
Well, do you know where these people come from?
No, he's not answering the question.
Do you know where
you
they come from? Iran,
You can see.
Syria, Afghanistan. So when Keir Starmer says he's going to return people, is he going to sit down? Are you going to sit down with the Iranian Ayatollahs? Are you going to try and do a deal with the Taliban? It's completely nonsensical what you are saying, right? You are taking people for fools.
The debate saw Sunak defending his party members against allegations of ethical lapses within his party, promising strict consequences for those involved. Starmer in turn highlighted Labour's vision for restoring integrity to politics and delivering on public service commitments.
I think over the last 14 years, politics has become too much about self-entitlement and MPs thinking about what they can get for themselves. And one of the important choices, and the thing that I would like to do if I'm elected Prime Minister, is to reset politics so that politics returns to public service.
We had an independent internal inquiry into what happened, have taken action and suspended the candidates involved, and I've been crystal clear that they should face the full consequences of the law. But Keir Starmer talks about leadership in politics. That's what Sue's question was at, was a broad question about how to do that. I also think leadership means being straight with people. It means having the courage of your convictions. not changing your mind on every single position that you've taken and being upfront about what you want to do for the country.
In fact, one of the audience members' candid question, and I quote him here, "Are you two really the best we've got?" underscored public disillusionment, drawing applause.
Mr. Sunak, I think you made a fair job of being Chancellor, but you're a pretty mediocre Prime Minister. Sir Keir, I think that your strings are being pulled by very senior members of the Labour Party. Are you two really the best we've got to be the next Prime Minister of our great country?
Both leaders faced scrutiny over their economic plans, with Sunak advocating for tax cuts and Starmer pledging fully funded reforms without burdening taxpayers.
Because I think it's got far too much.
On the sensitive issue of single-sex spaces and women's rights, both leaders outlined their stances, with Sunak affirming protection for such spaces and Starmer emphasizing inclusivity and dignity for all.
As the debate concluded, contrasting visions for the UK's future emerged. Sunak urged voters not to surrender to Labour, promising security and prosperity, while Starmer appealed for a change and a fresh start from Conservative policies. With the election just around the corner, the impact of this debate remains uncertain. Polls suggest a significant lead for Labour, but with unpredictable voter sentiment, the final outcome on July 4th could reshape the political landscape of the UK. For the latest from Battleground Britain, watch our YouTube channel, India Today Global, where we bring you all the big highlights and detailed analysis on the race for 10 Downing Street. Welcome back to World Today. Now, following Brexit, Tories seem to have been on the wrong foot. First Brexit, then Partygate scandal, then Liz Truss's economic consequences, and now Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's surprise announcement of an early election on the 4th of July. Political pundits say with the approval ratings of Sunak sliding down, the Conservatives may very much lose the race to 10 Downing Street. Here is a report.
The unpredictable British weather contrasts with the predictable political storm. The Tories, led by Rishi Sunak, are facing a historic defeat. Recent polls predict a further drop in his ratings, with the party set to take just 72 seats out of total 650. Analysts suggest this could be the worst defeat in the Tory history.
The polling is very consistent on this. They look set to go well below 30%. They've never gone below 30% before. And when you look into the detail of the polling, we have lots of polling from lots of different opinion polling companies, you see a really consistent pattern. Rishi Sunak has the worst prime ministerial approval ratings of any prime minister that there is polling for. The share of voters who say the government is doing a bad job is the highest that it has ever been.
The electorate's call for change after 14 years of Conservative rule is growing louder, especially amid one of the worst cost of living crises in the recent memory.
If you zoom out, it's quite hard to win an election when you've been in power for 14 years because people start thinking in terms of a change. Secondly, it's quite hard to win an election when you've presided over a massive cost of living crisis. But added to that are things that, if you like, the Conservatives have done to themselves. You had Partygate, which saw a significant drop in support for the Conservatives, and then you had the Liz Truss mini-budget. So it's problem layered upon problem, I think, that have left.
Following David Cameron's resignation post-Brexit, the Prime Ministership has been a revolving door, with Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak each taking their turn. This rapid succession, 3 Prime Ministers in just 2 months, stands in stark contrast to the preceding 28 years, which saw only 3 Prime Ministers: Margaret Thatcher, John Major and Tony Blair. The question then arises, how much of this turbulence is due to Rishi Sunak?
The best way of summing up the problem that Rishi Sunak has is he was dealt a very bad hand, in particular by Liz Truss, but also by Boris Johnson through Partygate and by being in charge of a party that's been in charge for an awfully long time. Those were all things out of his control. But, you know, any card player will tell you you can play a good hand, you know, a bad hand well or a bad hand badly. And he's taken this bad hand and played it very poorly.
In Richmond, the wealthiest constituency in the United Kingdom, a group of professionals are engrossed in their own journey to win. All padded up, Pranam is waiting for his turn to bat in a friendly cricket match. An IT professional, Pranam is not sure who his vote will go to.
Generally, it's not about Rishi Sunak or one person. Both the parties have not been very clear about their agenda. It's all very high level. They're talking about NHS, they're talking about police forces, they're talking about immigration. But I just wish that they would go deeper and explain what is their plan. Because all that we hear is, oh, we want to increase investments, or we don't want immigrants. That's fine, okay, but how are you going to solve the problem? So that's why I'm a little disappointed, and I don't think any party has clearly come out other than a high-level statement.
Sophie Stowers, researcher of the biggest survey done on the ethnic minority vote by the UK in a changing Europe, reveals even though Rishi Sunak is more positively viewed among British Indians than any other ethnic group, the tide is turning toward Labour.
Rishi Sunak is more positively viewed by British Indians than any other ethnic group. So we know that is a factor, but at the same time we know that most British Indians still say they're going to vote Labour at the next general election, even though we are seeing these higher rates of Conservative vote intention among that group compared to any other ethnic minority group. I think at this moment in time, the Conservatives are just so unpopular that it's just not really having an impact on vote intention.
As of now, many people are undecided, but there are others who are completely sure that, especially the experts and the pollsters, that Tory is definitely not the party that's going to make up to the top.
Like India, the United Kingdom has a number of powerful political parties, but the two most important are the Conservative Party, or the Tories, and the Labour Party. So who are they exactly, and what do they stand for? Conservative Party, or Tories. The Tories are currently in power, led by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. The perception is that they're dominated by elites as well as the rich. They have been in power since 2010 and have already spent 14 years in government. Labour Party is seen as a progressive party. It stands for social justice and the rights of working class people. It believes that the government should play a stronger role in the economy. Unlike the Conservatives, they are willing to spend less on defence. There are also smaller parties like the Liberal Democrats, the Greens, and the Reform Party led by Nigel Farage. Farage is a deeply controversial figure who is seen by many as the British version of Donald Trump. He was one of the main figures in the Brexit referendum. The most important issue in the UK elections is economy. The country is suffering through low growth and performing a lot worse than other major developed economies. At the same time, there's a major cost of living crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine have played a big role in skyrocketing prices. Another key issue is UK's public services like the National Health Service. The influx of migrants crossing the English Channel has been one of the key issues of Rishi Sunak's campaign. He's promised to send the migrants to Rwanda if he's re-elected after July 4th election. Talk about Rishi Sunak's India outreach and its growing importance. Rishi Sunak, UK's first British Indian Prime Minister, has been vocal about his Indian roots. His visit to India, marked by meetings with key Indian leaders, underscores a significant diplomatic effort to strengthen UK-India relations. But why is this outreach so crucial? For Sunak, these ties are more than ceremonial. They represent a strategic alliance that can bolster trade, security, and cultural exchange between the two nations. With India emerging as a global economic powerhouse, fostering a robust partnership is beneficial for both countries.
Thank you.
That's not all. He relished Indian food, walked the streets of Delhi, and even flaunted his Hindu roots by visiting Akshardham temple and offering prayers.
Yeah, so I'm a proud Hindu, and that's how I was raised, that's how I am.
But beyond the economic and diplomatic implications, Sunak's India outreach has profound political significance back home. The Indian-British community, over 1.4 million strong, is a vital vote bank in the United Kingdom. With polls suggesting a shift towards Labour, this Conservative leader is trying to ensure their support shouldn't sway against his prime ministerial ambitions, thus making them an essential demographic for any political leader to court. By connecting with his heritage and engaging with India, Sunak strengthens his appeal to this crucial voter base. As Sunak leverages his unique position to bridge these cultural and political landscapes, he aims to build a future where UK-India relations thrive, benefiting him and his political future. But for India, his extreme policies on visas and immigration could certainly be a problem. For more on the UK elections and its implications on international and domestic fronts, you can log on to India Today Global, our new international digital space. That's all in this edition of World Today. There's lots more coming up on the UK elections. We'll be bringing to you all the live reports from London, and also watch all the highlights of UK elections on India Today Global. Goodbye and take care.